considering I am far from having perfect gear yet, a cheeky little 40 billion is pretty damn good, considering you're hitting this frequently. Hello then, my fellow sorcerers. Welcome to, well, what is, at least as it currently stands, our truly top best meta build of the season. Our highest output, our fastest farmer, our most comfortable to just exist and destroy all of the content you could need to, and above all, our build that can speed farm pit 100s and actually level our glyphs without getting the help of like a Druid, Barb, or Necro. And I know in the background, as you can see, I am flying through a pit 90. That's, again, down to gear quality. To really stress, I don't even have an ancestral amulet. Never mind 12 out of 12 masterworking everywhere or perfect stats. But make no mistake, this is it. This build has our Sorcerer pit record of 113 so far. This is my take on it, and one I believe to be, well, the best way to configure it, because I've made a few little neat decisions that let you eke out a lot more power without giving up the obscene amount of cooldown reduction you need to have permanent unstable currents and consistently get out the maximum 12 lightning spears. And I'm not even using Shaco, which is normally required to reach that obscene levels of cooldown reduction, so we get that lovely Helm of Perdition boost. And yes, of course, we are getting to the ultra endgamey the best we can do, so mythics are going to come into play. That said, you can play this build without them. It's still really strong, it just gets stronger with mythics, so I'll be giving you all the alternate options as we go. But finally, let's address the lightning elephant in the room. Yeah, it's Lightning Spear. I know, one more season of Lightning Spear. However, I will say that Lightning Spear, thanks to the changes of Splintering Energy, meaning that it's the literal lightning spear that is doing the damage, not the actual aspect that we're pumping, is leading us to the most fun version of Lightning Spear so far, at least in my humble opinion. Being able to use something like Grow to have big, powerful spears is really entertaining, but more than that, the actual pace of the build is much nicer. It is less keyboard thundery piano boom, 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 and much more of like a normal cadence. Because the cap of Lightning Spear is only 12, we can reach that very easily and then spread out into other ways to power the build and make it even stronger and smoother to play. And ultimately it results in a colossally powerful setup that farms so well, because of course it's your Lightning Spears auto-targeting, flying far, killing everything for you. Whether you're doing pits, hordes, open world, it just absolutely crushes in a way that few builds, even the other classes, can't compare to in terms of the width that it can clear and the sort of AFK ease that it can do it. And you'll still be ultimately hitting for hundreds of billions if you get this to perfect gear, able to actually push pit really well, speed farm your glyphs up to 100, and most importantly, it still has really solid boss damage, killing tormented Duriel if you were gonna solo farm it, which is always nice, again, not needing to bring in your Necro friend in seconds. It really is kind of everything in one. The ease, the damage, the fun, the clear speed, it just really makes it happen, and it's hard to argue against it. There is the potential for a few other things to maybe take over. There's some ultimate setup shenanigans that we're looking into, and there's always the chance of a Horizon silver bullet to save the day. But until or if then, it is undoubtedly new Lightning Spear's time to shine for Sorcerer, and it shines beautifully. So without further ado, this is how to best set up peak new Splintering Energy Lightning Spear for Season 7, and to actually start to feel, you know, a little bit powerful. In a twist no one saw coming, we're gonna start the same way we always do with the skill tree. So, any 2 points in your basics, we don't care, we just want to move on to your cores. Here, if your resistances are all taken care of, then fill up elemental dominance with 1 point in potent warding. If they're not, then do the reverse. Either way, we move on. None of this really helps that much. Technically, this makes the ball lightnings will be cast, do a little bit more damage, but that's not where the damage is from, so over to defensives, where we still don't take a whole lot in terms of the top half of the tree. This is quite light for the build, and things get a lot more point dense later. In any case, Flame Shield, so, you know, we have it, and the reason for that is threefold. Number one, it's a really useful ability to have. Immune for 2 seconds, ignore boss mechanics, just stand there and kill, but we also, more importantly, need it for a fire skill to make Talrash's triple stack, and to make stacking enlightenment uptime as easy as possible. Then we grab ourselves teleport because it's glorious, get the usual movement speed and DR, and zoom along. 3 out of 3 in glass cannon, as this build is incredibly tanky. We don't have anywhere else to spend the points, and it's free damage, so, you know, collect your free damage when you pass go. Then we get to the conjurations. Initially then we get familiar, down to enhanced, and then invoked, as we'll always have a lightning familiar out from a stable current, so this is just 10% multiplicative more damage. We grab ourselves Ice Blades into enhanced and then roaring, so we get that extra source of cooldown reductions, more reliable stacks of primordial binding, though it's very easy to be at the 10 stacks, and just generally it's very helpful. Being able to have 12 spears and unstable currents permanently up is key, and this helps with that in a big way, especially with how I have set this up without Shaco's cooldown reduction help. Get yourself protection, so we get constant barriers. Grab yourself mana shield for constant 40% damage reduction if you do have your shroud, 30% if not, and then fill out primordial binding, which is now incredibly important. Even though it's just summon damage, the summon damage is everything, because as I said, Lightning Spear now with the changes to Splintering Energy is doing the damage itself, not via generating the aspect damage. So the actual damage this Lightning Spear does matters, which is why we've got 5 out of 5 ranks in it to power it up, which is also what you want. Then get enhanced, and then finally invoked, so it stuns everyone, as we're going to be doing a lot more damage to stunned enemies. Then we come over here, where we fill out Inner Flames, as it's just free damage. Again, very tanky, will always be on full health. Then grab yourself just a point in Ball Lightning, so we can technically cast it. Then down to enhanced, and then most importantly, Wizards. Every time we cast this, which is constantly, we get to Crackling Energy. That fuels the build in a big way that we will get to. In any case, we also want Invigorating Conduit, so we never run out of mana despite hammering out Ball Lightnings. Then we get over to our ultimate side of things. Get the new kind of standard triple frost power-ups. This says frost, but it is a tooltip error. It does apply to all of your damage if there's a frost skill on your bar, so don't worry about that. Get the free vulnerable damage to enemies, and then Hoarfrost for even more damage. We will be freezing a lot. Then we get elemental synergies, because again, it's free damage. We have 4 shock skills on the bar, so it certainly is okay. And then free cooldown reduction is always glorious. Now then, you can either get Coursing Currents 1 into Electrocution 3 if you feel you need the damage reduction, or you can take 3 points out of that and put them into Lucky Hit if you think the few Lucky Hit effects in the build aren't activating enough. It's kind of fine either way, but it's something to point out. Then lastly, we want all 5 points into Unstable Currents, chiefly just to lower the base cooldown of it so we can keep it permanently up without Shaco. Then we get Prime for the attack speed, as it's really nice, and then Enlightenment as by far our most potent key passive for anything that isn't a burning build of combustion. So that's how it looks overall. And then for your enchantments, well, you're going to be wanting Lightning Spear enchant, so we can walk over all the crackling energy produced by Wizard's Ball Lightning to summon even more Lightning Spears to help maintain the cap of 12 as often as possible. This is a really big deal, and one of the reasons we can get away without stacking so much cooldown reduction, and it weaves into nicely Ball Lightning being the best way to spam out random lightning skills while Unstable Currents is out. And then secondly, we want Ice Blades to maintain the maximum amount of Ice Blades up, and therefore the maximum amount of cooldown reduction and primordial binding stacks at 10. So let's move on. How to pilot play this? Well, firstly, there's most of it which which is quite simple, and then a few little things to think about. The simple side is press Ice Blades whenever it is off cooldown, press Lightning Spear whenever it is off cooldown, press Flame Shield whenever it is off cooldown, unless you're specifically doing a pit final boss, then save it for the echo attacks, otherwise press it on cooldown to build Enlightenment as fast as possible. Then press Unstable Currents on cooldown. That's simple enough. Teleport-wise, you just want to save it to literally go fast, move on, clear things quicker, or to get out of danger. So those are the kind of the rules for that. And then, shockingly, for Ball Lightning, you're just going to hold it down. Now, obviously, if you stand still and hold it down, you will run out of mana, unless you get kind of a lucky chain of crackling energy spawning on you like I have now. So while I have that going on, this is essentially what we want to happen. You hold down your Ball Lightning, and then you constantly go over all of the crackling energy that is created by your Ball Lightning as you progress through the dungeon, etc., whatever you're clearing. You'll leave a little trail behind you that you can always go grab, and you just want to be constantly picking it up for that 10% chance to summon a Lightning Spear out of it. And the reason that we also want to be spam casting Ball Lightning other than the crackling energy is because during Unstable Currents, that's going to keep churning out random extra Lightning Spears for us, and you can see I'm at the 12 maximum right now without even pressing Lightning Spear button itself, which will help me stay there even more. So that's kind of the flow. Once you get into a standard fight, like a boss here, you just get on top of it, press everything on cooldown, and then just sort of walk around it in a circle while holding down Ball Lightning, picking up crackling energy, and pressing everything as soon as it's available to press. And if everything is flowing smoothly, you will have permanent Unstable Currents uptime. I missed the boat a little bit there, but this one should work out nicely if we let it play out, and there we are. Perfectly off cooldown just as it finishes. And the reason we do want it to be permanently up is so we can press it once every 10 seconds, so we can activate ourselves Grow once every 10 seconds to keep Grow just permanently up for the big damage increase. Other than that, just kind of normal playing anything rules apply. Moving on to what you're wearing, aspects wise, it's this. On your staff, and you do want to have a two-handed staff, you want the star of the show, Splintering Energy. This new increase of damage by 200% of your critical strike damage is just ludicrous. It getting that double up on the staff even more so, and as you can see, I'm currently at 2,550, so this is really amping that Lightning Spear, and I can still easily push this much higher, clearing 3k and then some. In any case, yeah, Splintering Energy on a staff. On your amulet, you want Shredding Blades, very specifically, and then on your gloves you want Conceited. Lastly, on your legs you want Concussive Strikes for the extra damage to daze. We'll constantly be dazing people, there's so much going on, and that works out nicely. You can put on Orange Herald if you are still not quite getting 100% ultimate uptime, and that's completely fine too. If your gear's not as good, etc., it'll smooth out the curve, so one of those two. As soon as you can have 100% unstable currents without Orange Herald, swap to Concussive Strikes on your legs. Uniques then, on your boots, you want Rackenoff's Wake. The extra cooldown reduction is glorious, the non-physical to play into Enlightenment, the all-resist, making your resist caps just very comfortable, the constant evading from the reduction. They're just a brilliant pair of boots, and something I heartily recommend. Following that, we have the usual Tal Rashes, 75% multiplicative more damage, just cannot be ignored. The non-physical is glorious, the cooldown reduction is glorious, this is just the ring of all time. Then we get to Mythic Uniques. You want Ring of Starless Skies, that's another great benefit to constantly spamming Ball Lightning. Even though we're really caring about Lightning Spear, which doesn't cost mana, it means we get to use this. The attack speed just speeds up the build in general, the lucky hit chance isn't wasted, but mainly it's a 50% multiplicative damage, which is more than any random aspect, and worth it over the potential of another ring with critical strike damage to funnel into your staff. staff, but it's not like crazy. This is probably the mythic that you can most get away with, assuming you are good at picking up crackling energy and solving mana, but the mana reduction on this does make that a lot more forgiving. In any case, you kind of just want all mythics because sorcerers are so weak, we need all the damage help we can get. Then we want Shroud of False Death. The +1 to all passives is just invaluable, and the max life and all stats is also wonderful. The max life for being alive, and the all stats for activating everything on your Paragon board, and you will feel instantly like everything is easy as soon as you put this on. And then Air of Perdition to get that 60% multiplicative more damage increase. The lucky hit and movement speed is fine. The critical strike chance won't actually be needed once you get the Grow Witch Power high enough level that you're always guaranteeing crits anyway, but you can't ignore a Helm slot giving you a 60% multiplier on your damage. If you don't have these mythic uniques, then you can instead put Raiment on as your chest, you want Godslayer Crown as your helmet, and then a normal ring with critical strike damage and critical strike damage tempers, and the aspect that increases your conjuration ranks on it. That's a simple replacement. And I will mention as an alternate way you can do things, if you do want to use Shaco, it does put your 9-second lightning spear down to the 6. Of course, it speeds everything up, but you do lose a lot of oomph from the effect of Perdition. However, if you're just kind of farming like headhunts and stuff, you don't necessarily need that damage. You don't necessarily need as many lightning spears up, so you can wear Shaco and then do something like put the teleport enchant on just to go faster if you really want, but it's of course not critical or crucial. So, for our affixes, then, on your staff, you want critical strike damage, maximum life, and intelligence. That's literally it. On your amulet, you want ranks to primordial binding. That is the most important thing by far. Ideally, GA, triple hit it with 12 out of 12 masterworking. It's a huge increase, and that's the big difference between what I have and what I would need to push that, you know, pit 110, more ranks of primordial binding. After that, you want ranks to either Inner Flame or Permafrost, and then after that you want % intelligence. If you can't get any of that, then with your Primordial Binding, which you definitely need, something like cooldown reduction or attack speed is going to be okay, but, you know, not anywhere near as good as what I've mentioned. On your gloves, you want attack speed, critical strike damage, and intelligence, and that's nice and easy. And then finally on your legs, you want intelligence, life, and armor, and you ideally want the armor to be a GA, just so you can naturally sit at the armor cap without having to use something like Soothing Spices, but if you prefer, you can just keep popping Soothing Spices. Then, and I guess while we're here, the ideal elixir for this is of course Elixir of Precision to keep buffing your critical strike damage. After that, well, that is gems and rune time. You want critical strike damage on your weapon, you want intelligence in your armor, and then we'll get to occult gems with witch powers. So for your runes then, you want this. Nagu Zek. Maintain an active summon, and then lower your ultimate cooldown. This rune combo is why we can play this with Perdition instead of Harlequin's Crest, and still maintain 12 spears and permanent and stable currents. It's the secret sauce that lets us have our cake and eat it too. So you definitely want this. Then we also have Yola Full, and that's simply, you know, cast a skill with a cooldown, which we are constantly doing, and then we get our Mystical Frost Nova. This increases the damage we do to the enemies that get hit by it by that 50% multiplicative, and it's fairly cheap offering-wise to keep firing off, and lets us still take advantage of that new powerful Frost Nova, so I heartily recommend it. Which witch powers, I hear you ask? What? No, you didn't ask that at all, and you wish I'd stop doing it every build guide? Haha, no. You want Aura of Siphoning, and chiefly you want this literally just because it's an aura, and we need to have an aura on. Though at rank 10 it is quite a good survivability tool. The reason we want an aura then is for Aura Specialization, the Lost Power, so we have this permanent critical strike damage increase, as critical strike damage is everything to this build. Following that, we want Grow, so every time we unstable currents, we get 26% multiplicative more summoning damage, for 10 seconds, and coincidentally we're pressing unstable currents every 10 seconds, so this is lovely. Then we want Soul Harvest, just because this % increase in intelligence per enemy forever until there's no enemies is a huge increase to what we want, and is really solid, especially compared to the other options. Lastly, we take Hex of Flames, so we can consistently, well, hex enemies to play into the Occult gem choice. For your unique, you actually can choose any of them. None of them are required, so have fun. If my Paragon was level 5, I would 100% be using it instead, because I think it's hilarious and I like seeing it around the place. So you can take that as you will, but right now Doomob is out damaging it, so I've left Doomob on. Occult gems, you want Pointed Fingers, so you do 15% multiplicative more damage to elites that are hexed, which is why we have Hex of Flames, and of course that is our summons doing the damage. Past that, it's just kind of sort of standard stuff. We will have 3 growth and decay on, so getting 8% primary core stat is actually quite nice, the increase of intelligence, but it's not like critical. You also could put something like Duststone on, but it's not quite as good. Then Moonlight Ward is also not bad at all for the damage reduction, the maximum resist. There really isn't like any other kind of key required ones, honestly, past that initial Pointed Finger, so it is fairly nice on the old Occult gem farming if you do end up playing this build. Though I always do like Hungering Void, as stacking everything up for the lightning spears passing through is always satisfying, and it definitely helps with your farming. For tempering on your staff, you want chance for lightning spear to deal double damage, and you want critical strike damage. On your amulet, you want critical strike damage, and ideally unstable currents cooldown reduction if you aren't managing permanent uptime. I kind of bricked it trying something with mobility, which is certainly a shame, but there it is. Then on your gloves, you want critical strike damage and lucky hit chance to freeze. On your legs, you want % total armor and lucky hit chance to freeze. If you are using a normal ring instead of Starless Skies, you want, once again, unstable currents cooldown reduction and critical strike chance. Damage even, not chance. Damage. Over to your Masterworking then. You want to hit, ideally, chance for Lightning Spear to deal double damage, so of course I didn't hit it once, though critical strike damage isn't bad. On your Amulet, you want to hit Primordial Binding every single time, and if you have the mats to burn, make it happen 3 times. On your Gloves, you want to hit critical strike damage, and then on your legs, you ideally just want to hit Intelligence. Mercenary-wise, we want Vajana in support for the 10% attack speed, and then you want yourself Subo primarily for this 25% multiplicative increase in critical strike damage, as that of course directly helps what we're doing with this setup specifically. And now we'll tie everything up in a little bow that is the Paragon tree. Follow me point for point, it's honestly quite a nice one, and you can pretty much finish it on fairly low amount of total points, which is always nice. In any case, we want to initially head right, grab your Elementalist, and as a heads up throughout all of this, if you ever see a unconnected to anything and unrequired points spent, like this one here for Mond on Fizz, if you have less points than me, then don't get those ones until you've got everything else. If you do, then, well, get them. We want to go up and left for the Dexterity, for the eventual Glyph, and then we want to head up and left through Resilience, and through more Dexterity, getting even more Dex on the right, and ending up at the Glyph, where we slot Activate Destruction. We want to power this up with literally every single Dexterity in its range, and that's exactly what we've done. Then grab yourself Studied, grab yourself Elemental Balance, and then we head up into the first board, which is going to be the ever-trusty Fundamental Release. Now, technically speaking, you can get a 60% multiplicative increase on another board, like the Crackling Energy one, but I much prefer Fundamental Release's extra options around the place, the rare nodes. I prefer its layout, and honestly, it's a lot of shifting things around for, well, a little bit of a damage increase, especially when I don't care about pushing Pit. But if you really do, then that is an option to point out. In any case, you want to head up and right through Lightning Cutter, and then left to the Glyph slot, where we put in and activate Exploit. Then we want to head left and grab Elemental Balance. Then initially, we want to go up through this Intelligence here, all the way way to Fundamental Release itself and get it, and then head right up at Overdrive, and then continue into our first board, which is going to be your Frigid Fate board. We want to arrange it like this, so Oppressive is in the bottom left. We want to go over to this Intelligence. If you have the spare points, come down and grab Oppressive and this Magic Glowed Cluster, then head to the Glyph slot where we will put in Elementalist. Another reason we do want the Flame Shield, though Rakenov's Wake does help with this one. In any case, we continue on to Elemental Favor, and then up through Weakness, all the way round to Frigid Fate, and if you have the points, come and get Guarded. Then we head back here, up north, through Fundamental Release, going left to Kindling, and then getting the Critical Strike damage. Any Critical Strike node is your priority for extra points, as Critical Strike damage is the most important thing here. Then we want to go left to Suffused Resilience for the damage reduction and all res, and then up top into the next board, which is going to be your Elemental Summoner board. 60% multiplicative more on the Lightning Spears, and the cooldown reduction, very, very nice. You want to arrange it like this, so Reservoir is in the bottom right, and that's where we want to initially head. Grab said Reservoir, grab all of the cooldown reduction, and then head north, veering right in order to get Swift Conjurer. The conjuration damage and attack speed is very, very nice. Then continue on, grab the legendary node, and then head left through all of this dex, getting this little bit of extra dex here to the glyph slot where we put in control. This 20% multiplicative makes clearing random enemies a breeze, especially in higher tankier pits, and they are going to be permanently frozen or stunned, and it's just quite nice to have, and there's not really a better option, honestly. Then we go down to Conjurer, grab everything around it that we need to have, and then up for Keeper of Flames and get the bonus intelligence too. Now, lastly, we go left from Elemental Balance over to here, up to Electromagnetism, and then into our final board, which is going to be your Searing Heat board. The obviously Pyromancy critical strike chance doesn't matter, we care about this big meaty 60% multiplicative damage increase, and also the fact that this board does give us this explosive node, which is a huge amount of critical strike damage. So arrange it with the glyph in the top right, head into it left, straight up here, getting all the critical strike damage, and then to the glyph where we put in Tactician. Going through the decks, down to the middle, getting Combustion, through more critical strike damage, and activating the legendary node. If you have more points than me, well, you just start clearing up, getting all of the extra life, the damage reduction, and anything else you want, honestly, because I already have everything that I would kind of need. So that is your Paragon. Lightning Spear then, once again reigning supreme, though thankfully in a very different way that is a lot healthier, with it being the Lightning Spear damage itself, not just scaling an aspect, and its fun interactions with the Witch Power, its much less spammy playstyle. Generally, I'm really happy that it is the way that it is, and it's a much more fun build to play, and still remains incredibly powerful, and really I can't be mad at that. Let me know what you think then, of course, let me know what you're playing, and I'll be back, I'm sure, with more fun builds. Meteorites is also looking really, really good this season, and that's always entertaining. Like you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.